Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this full authority meeting of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority. This is a hybrid meeting, so we have people both online and in the room today. So with that, I'm first of all going to do the acknowledgement. Niagara Peninsula watershed is situated within the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Attawandaronk, and Anishinaabeg, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties number 3, 4, and 381, and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, the watershed is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Through the 2021-2023 Strategic Plan, we reconfirm our commitment to shared stewardship of natural resources and deep appreciation of Indigenous culture and history in the watershed. Can you please take a roll call, Mr. Bivol?
Good morning, everyone. Do we have Member Beatty? See him there, yes?
Yes.
Member Brady?
I'm here, Grant.
Okay. We have regrets from Member Clark. Member Cridland?
I'm here.
Member Fior?
Good morning.
Member Halinga?
I'm here.
Member Hewson?
Present.
Member Ingrao?
Here.
We have regrets from Member Johnson. Member Kewall?
Here.
Member McKenzie?
Good morning.
Vice Chair Metcalf?
Present.
Member Rapley?
Here.
Member Shurton?
Present.
Member Smith? Member Steele?
I'm here.
Member Woodhouse?
Present.
Member Wright?
Present.
And of course, Chair Foster.
I'm present. Are there any declarations of anyone that will need to leave early today, just so we have it, so we know what our timeline is?
Rob, I'm going to have to leave at about 11:30. It's Rick Brady.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'll still have to leave around 11:30.
Okay, thank you, Member Hewson. Okay, thank you. I have to say that because Member Shurton will be after me to make sure everything is on time here. So, before we approve the agenda, I would like to make one adjustment to it with the committee's indulgence. We would like to move 14 A, B, and C, which is the closed session items, up to between 2 and 3. So in other words, before the approval of the minutes, we will go into closed session. There are a number of items in closed session. I want to make sure that everyone is here so that we can go through and make sure that we have a full discussion on those items. So with that change, can I get Member Rapley to move and Member Metcalf to second that?
Yes.
And turn it off. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Great, thank you. Please, I guess, raise your hands accordingly if you are in favor of that agenda. Thank you, that is carried. Are there any declarations of interest before we begin? I do not see any. So with that, we are going to prepare the room for closed session. So can I get Member Ingrao to move that we move to closed session for the 3 items and to Member Cridland to second. And by the way, I'm sorry, the 3 items are litigation of potential litigation or potential litigation, informants or compliant matters, a verbal update. Second, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the Npca. And a third that we have added today, which is labor relations, HR, or employee negotiations. So that's the thing. So we do have a mover and second to move to closed session for that. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that is carried. So we will prepare the room now for closed session. Thank you. Welcome back to the open session of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority meeting for this Friday, July the 15th. We were just in closed session for the last approximately 3/4 of an hour. We are now coming back into open session, and there is a motion that we need to move. Can I ask Member K-Wall to move a motion that staff be instructed to proceed as directed in the closed session with respect to proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the Npca. So, Member K-Wall, would you move that?
Yes, I will, Chair.
Thank you. Member Cridland, would you please second that?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions to the motion? Seeing none, please vote. Please raise your hands if you are in favor.
Aye.
And that is carried. Yeah, that is carried. Thank you very much. Our next item is approval of the minutes from our June the 17th, 2022 meeting. Can I get Member Mackenzie to move that we put this onto the floor? And can I get Member Fior to second this, please? Are there any questions to the minutes and or the motion? Seeing none, please vote. Raise your hands if you are in favor.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair's update. I will be very brief. A number of things have been going on. The first item that I want to say is that after considerable discussion with the foundation as well as staff, because of recent events, I would say this property acquisitions are one, and I would also say that the Balls Falls Fair, our Balls Falls Thanksgiving event, is going to be going full bore this year. We made a decision to for all intents and purposes, delay our golf tournament until next year. And we're going to be looking at doing something in the spring or early summer. So just to let you know that. I had the opportunity to be with Member Woodhouse down in Thorold. We were very pleased to, and also with our foundation chair, Mr. Encina, to be for the Mickey DeFrugio butterfly garden planting that was going on at Beaver Dam Park in Thorold. A real pleasure to be there, and it was great seeing the kids out doing the plantings. And of course, Mickey needs no real discussion here. I'm sure he was looking down and saying it's wonderful that was going into place. CAO Sharma and myself met with the Niagara Parks Commission this week. We were having a discussion about the joint ventures that are going on between our two associations / groups, and also some talked about potential future work together and potential opportunities that we may have between the two organizations. The CAO of Npca and our CAO are going to be meeting regularly to see where we can go with this. This goes hand in hand, by the way, with what the province has told us, which is let's make sure that our organizations are as efficient as possible, and to work together when it makes sense for us to be working together on differing things. So this is a great opportunity. CEO Sharma and I also had a meeting with the town of Lincoln to talk about a variety of things within the town of Lincoln. It seems that awful lot of work is going on within it, and so we had a good discussion with the mayor and CAO of the town of Lincoln on a variety of items that are going into place. And the other thing is, I met earlier this week with the commissioner of planning at Niagara Region, Michelle Sergi, and our meeting was to discuss the Conservation Authorities Act changes and to make sure that the region is fully aware and understanding of what is going on with these particular areas, which of course they are. Michelle is top-notch, by the way, and I know Councillor Hewson Member Hewson will say that great asset for Niagara region. But we just want to make sure that that's understood, and I also gave a suggestion that we may want to revisit the Memorandum of Understanding between the Npca and Niagara region in the future when it comes to a lot of planning issues. So I'm sure staff will be having those types of discussions over the course of the next little while. And that is the end of my report. Correspondence. We have no correspondence this morning, so let us move into our presentations. And with that, we have Alicia Powell, who's going to be doing a presentation for us, update on the 2022 Balls Falls Festival. Is Alicia here? Oh, there she is. You disappeared into the back, Alicia.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair. It's my pleasure to bring you an update today with regards to the 2022 Balls Falls Festival taking place October 7th through the 10th. One moment.
So does everybody, can you all hear Alicia well? Everything's good? Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. So I'm very pleased to bring you this update today with regards to the 2022 Balls Falls Festival taking place October 7th through the 10th of this year. Today we're going to be sharing with you a little bit about who from amongst our staff are on our festival committee preparing for our events this year, as well as going over, as Chair Foster mentioned, the return of our in-person festival, which we're very thrilled about. Talking about our artisan and farmers markets, our community partners, concessions, sustainability at the festival, heritage programming and entertainment, and of course accessibility. I'm happy to share with you an update on our hybrid admission sales and our health and safety planning going forward. Amongst our staff, we have a number of folks who are assisting in planning and preparing and then delivering our festival. Our park superintendent and manager here at Balls Falls, Rob Currett. Park Representative Sarah Hutley from this site here will be supporting our operations and site logistics, as well as staff from our central workshop, Park Manager Rob Schultz and Park Assistant Brent Cumming. For taking care of vendors and administration, our customer relations representative, Catherine Orsini, will be supporting, as she always has so diligently in administering and taking care of our vendors. From our corporate services and finance department, Lise Gagnon and Eric Gervais will be supporting us in procurement and administering our finances. On behalf of communications and outreach, Manager Rebecca Hull and volunteer coordinator Carrie Royer will be supporting us as we so dearly rely on our wonderful volunteers each year. On behalf of our department in conservation area programs and services, educational coordinators Jenna Moorhead and Quinn Voss will be supporting heritage and culture programming on site, and for coordination of our festival, myself and Director Adam Christie will be supporting. We're thrilled to be able to say that we're returning to a full complement of festival celebrations over the Thanksgiving weekend, including an artisan market that will feature over 120 unique craft and artisan vendors. If you'll recall from 2021, when we were able to return to full in-person or modified, I should say, in-person programming, we had an open-air market set up. We did away with our big top tents, which were stuffy and didn't allow for the airflow and traffic and would have required capacity moderation on site. So we're turning to this idea of an open-air market stall setup, as you can see in the top image, very similar to the setup in our center of the festival proper from 2019. We'll be following that layout on the grounds. Our farmers market will return to the Heritage Village, featuring over 12 local producers and growers from right here within Niagara. And of course, we work with a number of community partners, providing opportunities for community groups and partners to connect with our visitors throughout the festival grounds. We have to date looking forward to partnerships with the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Foundation at the festival. We look forward to working with the Niagara Peninsula Aspiring Global Geopark on the site, a major tourism drawer and an opportunity to share what we do by the Npca, by our foundation, and of course the presence of the Geopark there, as well as big brothers and big sisters here in Niagara are excited to be joining us at the festival this year. If you'll recall from 2021, we set up our V section, as we call it, traditionally where we had large big top tents at the back of our festival. We set it up to have an open air food and beverage picnic area right in front of our stage, as you can see in the top photo there. We're looking forward to returning to that and offering a full complement of entertainment, music, children's entertainers, and family entertainers, all in front of our seating area for folks to enjoy their food and beverage from local producers and providers and enjoy some wonderful local entertainment. Sustainability at our festival is imperative, and our policy for food and beverage providers requires them to follow low waste and sustainable practices in delivering their products and services. For example, the utilization of recyclable and compostable materials and minimizing the use of single-use plastics when they're providing their services and goods to visitors. And lastly, we're very excited to see the return of Niagara's eco-defenders in assisting us in sorting waste and reducing the amount of waste that returns to Niagara's landfills. And speaking with Jane and her team, they're very excited to be returning to some larger events and most looking forward to attending our festival and supporting us. So we'll be calling on some volunteers to support the eco-defenders. We are so proud of our Heritage Village here at Balls Falls and the programming that we deliver. We're returning to the full delivery of guided tours of our buildings and grounds, including interior tours of the Ball home, perhaps by a member or a descendant of the Ball family themselves, a view of the interior of our chapel and the Fairchild cabin, as well as some demonstrations taking place in those buildings and areas as well, perhaps learning how to produce Thanksgiving stew or harvesting inside of our gardens. We'll also be featuring heritage demonstrations across the grounds, including blacksmithing, which is ever popular, the operation of our grist mill, wood carving, as well as spinning in our big barn. We're thrilled to be able to welcome back Niagara Antique Power to show off their steam engines and materials and the work that they do and the traditional skills that they are able to encapsulate. Of course, across our grounds in our Heritage Village, we'll feature a number of photo displays, vignettes, and of course, selfie stations. Children's and family entertainment is central as well, and we want the festival to feature everything that families can enjoy across the life course. So in the rear of our back Heritage Village area, we'll feature a magic and discovery area. We'll have some face painting and pony rides for little ones, as well as some heritage program activity stations, similar to what classes would enjoy here at Balls Falls if they were to attend a field trip. And we're very thrilled to be able to offer guided eco-hikes, should folks select, to enjoy the beautiful escarpment and our nature trails here at Balls Falls. Our partnership with Country 89 and Giant FM is in the works. We have been having discussions with them with regards to our entertainment lineup for this year. We're thrilled to be able to offer a full stage of programming, offering live, both acoustic and plugged-in performances by new and popular local artists. So stay tuned for an update on who will be joining us on the main stage this year. And of course, earlier in the day of the festival, we'll have children's and family entertainment for those who arrive early on site. Accessibility is central to our festivities as well. It's imperative that folks are able to come and enjoy the site in its fullest. So we'll have a full complement of accessible vehicles to support those that require accessible services to get around the site. We'll provide accessible busing, as we traditionally did back in 2019 and before, from the Centre for Conservation's accessible parking lot down to the main festival area proper, as well as golf cart shuttle services to our main parking lot. We will be revising and updating our festival brochure and map. Folks love this. It also features the list of artisans and vendors and their contacts, their social media and websites as well for folks to follow up on. So we'll be working on that, as well as having wayfinding signage across our grounds, rebranded for folks to be able to find their way through. And drawing on the support of our wonderful volunteers, having some volunteer guides across the festival to show folks where to go. In 2021, we required advanced reservation for our festival in order to maintain and manage capacity on the site. It was a technique that was actually very supportive and was allowing staff to plan logistics ahead of time. So going forward into 2022, we plan to deliver an advanced ticket reservation system through our Thanksgiving Festival website with a set number of tickets for sale online in advance, access through our website there. And it allows us to deliver a fast track line to enter our festival for those with pre-purchased tickets. So hopefully we can get more folks through a little bit faster. And of course, walk-ins are always welcome. In 2022, we look forward to welcoming folks as usual back from 2019 at our main gates, and of course, recommending contactless payment. Health and safety of our visitors, volunteers, vendors, and staff remains paramount. Of course, we know at this time that large-scale outdoor events and festivals are permitted, and going forward, we're so thrilled to see the X going forward, a number of fairs and festivals taking place across Niagara. And we know that most restrictions and requirements have been lifted at this time within the region. At the same time, we acknowledge the importance of health and safety and maintaining distancing in our areas. So in our indoor settings within the big barn and our heritage buildings, we will be maintaining capacity and recommending that folks wear masks. We'll ensure that our vendors' booths are distanced, provide ground markings and signage to support physical distancing outdoors. And of course, providing personal protective equipment to all staff and volunteers. We have a revised risk management and COVID-19 safety plan, which we'll be modifying with the support of the town of Lincoln for 2022 and following the current guidelines as they're updated and revised going forward into the fall. More information will be provided regularly at our website at thanksgivingfestival.ca, and we look forward to seeing everyone there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. Any questions for at this point? Seeing none, I do have one comment on your group that's involved with this. Reach out to the foundation and get someone from the foundation involved. I think that would be appropriate. So, okay.
Thank you, Chair. We will do.
Yep, thank you. Great. Can I get Member Beattie to move that we receive this report, and can I get Member Shurton to second that? Great. All those in favor, please. Oh, can you remove the presentation? That was carried, so. There we go. Now we're all back together again. Okay. Second presentation this morning is from Jason Culp, Manager Compliance and Enforcement, concerning the Compliance and Enforcement Procedural Manual. Jason, please go ahead.
Can I just ask Gina to pull up? There we go. Gina's doing my presentation in the background for me. So good morning, Chair, members of the board, staff that are present at the meeting. This presentation is in relation to Report FA 2822, which is the Npca Section 28 Compliance and Enforcement Procedural Manual. I'm just going to do a little bit of a presentation just to kind of give you a little bit of background on the process, how the procedural manual came to be about, and just some insights into the compliance and enforcement business area at the Npca, since it's not something that is often talked about, and we're working on doing some more forward-facing communications and information for the public, the board, and our own internal staff. I am Jason Culp. I am the Manager of Compliance and Enforcement here at the Npca. My team is responsible for compliance and enforcement on private lands. That's particularly what Section 28 applies to. We undertook the procedural manual in order to make our internal processes more accountable and transparent to the public. This is something that a number of other CAs have also begun undertaking, and we have actually worked with Toronto Region Conservation Authority and Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority most recently on assisting them in developing their procedural manuals and SOPs as well. I will go through the presentation, and there'll just be some highlights from the report as well. Next slide, please, Gina. Purpose of the presentation today, again, present the procedural manual to the Board of Directors for discussion and approval. We're going to take a look at our legislative jurisdiction, some of our regulatory partners, the process review, and then there'll be the opportunity for some questions at the end. Next slide, please. So just a quick overview. Everyone's familiar with our watershed. At this time, again, Section 28 applies to all private lands that are regulated by the Npca. The current regulation team, as it stands right now, consists of 2 officers for the entire watershed. We have quite a large area, obviously, to cover. We try and divide up the watershed based on specific areas for the officers, so they're dealing with the same staff on a regular basis. But again, just a quick map overview of the area that we cover. Next slide, please. So our legislative jurisdiction. Essentially, the Conservation Authorities Act and Regulation 15506. That essentially tells the Section 28 staff here at the Npca what we regulate, where we regulate, and why we regulate it. The how we regulate is actually more embedded within the Provincial Offences Act itself. The procedural manual and the entire intent of it is, again, it only applies to Section 28 of the Act, which is private lands. It does not apply to Section 29 of the CA Act, which is lands owned by the Conservation Authority. So again, this is just Section 28. The Section 28 gives the opportunity, it's private lands and those lands which would otherwise be regulated by the Npca through planning or potentially permitting processes. Next slide, please. So as you can see or imagine, we have a lot of different regulatory partners here in Niagara due to the number of lower tier municipalities, the existence of the upper tier municipalities. From a federal perspective, we most often deal with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. On a provincial level, we deal with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. We deal with the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources and Forestry, formerly the MNRF. We deal with the Niagara Escarpment Commission on a regular basis and other provincial agencies if they cross over or have overlapping jurisdiction, for example, on occasion OMAFRA due to the significant rural and agricultural sections we have in the watershed. Locally, we do deal with the upper tier municipalities on a regular basis. For example, the Niagara region now has administration of their woodland bylaw back, and we work regularly with them. And then, of course, the local lower tier municipality bylaw staff, wherever those opportunities are applicable, and you may have some overlap in jurisdiction. Next slide, please. So this is just a little bit about our regulations officers. All of the officers at the Npca are class designated provincial offences officers by the province of Ontario. In order to maintain that designation, our officers must be appointed by the board of directors for the Npca. They must have adequate training in the legislation with which they are to enforce. That currently at a minimum means that they have to have taken the level 1 training for Conservation Ontario, and they must have and maintain a clean criminal record. The regulations officers at the Npca do have the ability to work with other regulatory agencies where there may be overlapping jurisdiction. For example, the bylaw officers or DFO. And then as well, they do have the opportunity for ongoing training, which we are working on internally as part of the procedural manual and the other processes, and that may include level 2 advanced officer training, de-escalation training, search warrant and collection of evidence training as well. Next slide, please. So a lot of people would like to know, how do we find out? Primarily, we find out through professional contacts, internal staff at the Npca through other processes, bylaw staff at our lower tier municipalities, DFO, MECP. They will contact us if they're out and about. Conversely, we will contact them as well if we see things. We do intake concerns brought to us by the public. We have a number of methods that we do that. And we actually find a number of offenses and potential violations each year just through proactive or other investigations where we're going to look at something else and we happen to essentially find something in the process of being committed. The resources that are currently available to the public, for example, to reports, we do have an online form on our website where people can report. We have a dedicated enforcement extension at extension 255, and we have the tips at npca.ca email that people can send to us. And then we also have our Section 28 online mapping available to folks if they'd like to take a look as to whether or not their property or a property that they have concerns with is actually regulated by the Npca. Next slide, please. So what do we do? Essentially, we intake all of the complaints and the information that we receive from the public. We go and we lawfully investigate any valid Section 28 complaints or concerns about potential violations. Our main objectives always are, where possible, stop the offense, and number 2, find a solution. A solution in the compliance and enforcement realm can include anything from voluntary compliance through to prosecution. If we have a landowner who's not willing to come into compliance, or we have a situation where the violation may be beyond the scope of voluntary compliance possibilities. Where possible, we do contact the complainants back. We do try and make initial contact with them to validate the information and determine whether or not the officers can actually undertake a lawful investigation. And we then also follow through with any of the other compliance or enforcement processes, which can be anything through negotiating a permit for unauthorized works to attending court, collecting additional evidence, and proceeding with prosecution. Next slide, please. There's just some additional key elements that staff must consider. Of course, the regulations staff respond to the complaints. We do try and respond to those complaints initially, generally in the manner which we receive them. So if somebody calls us, we call them back. If someone emails us, we email them back. We also have an automatic acknowledgement through the form on the website. However, the one thing that is mentioned in the procedural manual is once we have had that initial contact with the complainant, one of the things that we generally cannot do is we don't provide ongoing follow-up or additional details with regards to the case once we've actually started an investigation. That's important to consider because one of the things that we have to do is to lawfully investigate any of the potential violations. We are at that time then entering into a compliance or enforcement, essentially partnership with the landowner. And our officers then have to protect the charter and the prosecutorial rights of the landowner that they're dealing with. In order to do that, we generally, to put it forward, in a way that everyone is familiar with, we follow essentially the FOI guidelines in what we can and can't provide to people once we've opened an investigation. So we can't provide landowners' names, we don't provide addresses, we do not provide phone numbers, and we follow the directive that if we've started a lawful investigation, there is always the potential that that file may proceed to prosecution, which means that until such time as that file is closed or we've actually resolved it, it is an open compliance matter and we do not provide additional details to the public. Next slide, please. I'm asking if anyone has any questions on this, and I'm not sure, did you want to take questions on the report at the same time now, or we'll do that later?
No, we'll just take questions to the presentation. So, okay, you've dropped that. Good. Member Brady, please go ahead.
You'll remember, Jason, at the governance committee, I asked that you do something to make sure that the public are aware in terms of customer service. So in your presentation, you've added, I believe, a change in that now you will let people know that you're following up. Is that what I understood your presentation to say?
Through you, Chair Foster, to Member Brady. Absolutely. And I do want to clarify, it was a little bit on my part. At the governance committee meeting, I was really trying to drive home that point about it being the follow-up piece, not the initial response piece. We do hit over 80% on our initial contact with the complainants in one way or another. So we did address it in the report. There's actually an enhanced customer service piece that we put in there. And then actually Director Yates and myself worked on section 2.1. There actually is some wording in there to clarify the difference between that initial acknowledgement and response and our ability or inability to continue responding after that.
I'd like to thank you very much for that. That addresses the issue that I'd raised.
Thank you, Member Brady. Member McKenzie.
Thank you, Chair Foster. Through you to Jason. Jason, can a citizen report anonymously concerns about what's going on a particular property?
Through you, Chair Foster, to Member McKenzie. Of course, we would highly encourage folks to not report anonymously. The issue that we have with anonymous complaints is that anyone who brings forward information that may have the impact of having an enforcement officer undertake the next step towards a lawful investigation may actually be called to provide a witness statement and be a witness in court should that file proceed to court proceedings. So as a general rule of thumb, and as noted in the procedural manual, generally we consider anonymous complaints to be insufficient in the data necessary and the information necessary to have an enforcement officer move forward with lawful investigation. However, that also is entirely dependent on the information that is provided to us and the officers and team's discretion as to whether or not they take that and move forward.
Thank you, Jason. And Chair Foster, just a short follow-up question, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Yes, Jason, in a situation where it's neighbor speaking about a neighbor, the neighbor who brings the complaint forward, what guarantees do they have, and how long do they last in the process, that their name will remain only with the Npca staff?
Through you, Chair Foster, to Member McKenzie. There are disclaimers both on the website, in our voicemail, and various other elements that we use in the enforcement component. Of course, any information that is provided to a compliance and enforcement officer, a member of the regulations teams, remains private within the team itself for the purposes of the investigation. So again, we can no more talk to the landowner about who the complainant was than we can talk to the complainant about who the landowner is. So it's protected both ways.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member McKenzie. I see no other questions for you at this point, Jason. So with that, thank you very much. Can I get Member Ingrao to move that we receive this presentation? And can I get Member Brady to second that, please? Yep, thank you. All those in favor of receiving this presentation? And that is carried. Thank you. Let us move on to our reports this morning. Oh, we have no delegations, by the way. So the first is a consent item. It's report FA 27-2022 Replanning and Regulation Semi-Annual Report. And if this is for receipt. So to put this onto the floor, can I get Member Metcalf to move that? And can I get Member Rapley to second that, please? Reports on the floor. Any questions to this at this point? Seeing none, please vote by raising your hands as a yes. That is carried. Thank you very much. Discussion items. We do have 3 this morning. Our first is report number FA 26-2022, Recontract Award for Gonders Flats Wetland Enhancement Project. And this is for approval this morning. So can I get Member Cridland to move this? And can I get Member Shurton to second this, please? Questions to the report? I see none. Please raise your hands if you are voting in affirmative with this, please. That is carried. Thank you. Second is report number FA 29-2022 Npca Conservation Awards. Can I get Member Hewson to move this report to be put on the floor? And can I get Member Steele to second that, please? Thank you. Any questions to this report? Member Woodhouse, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of the nominations, I'm going to page 15 of the report, as it's identified here. The discussion, and it said nominations awarded being invited from the public internally through the media releases, correspondence, social media website, and the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce. I think that to expand this opportunity to businesses across the whole watershed, we represent a number of chambers of commerce in Hamilton and elsewhere, Grimsby, Niagara Falls. So I would suggest that that be changed to through all of the business organizations, the representing businesses such as chambers of commerce, Niagara Board of Trade and Commerce, those kind of things. So it's all inclusive. The more corporate people we get involved, I think, is better for the organization going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Member Woodhouse, can staff take that as direction? Thank you. Any other questions to this report? Seeing none, please raise your hand if you are approving this, please. Thank you. Third report is the Conservation FAA 30-2022 Conservation Authorities Act Transition Quarterly Progress Report, Ontario Regulation 687/21, Transition Plan and Agreements for Programs and Services. That is a mouthful. Can I get Member Metcalf to move that, and can I get Member Hewson to second that, please? To CEO Sharma, do you have any comments on this particular report this morning? No? Okay, thank you. Any questions to this report? Seeing none, please raise your hands if you are willing to approve this, or at least it's for approval. Thank you. Let's move into committee reports. The first area is the Governance Committee. So we do have the minutes from the meeting of the Governance Committee dated June the 30th, 2022. Can I get Member Ingrao, who's the chair of that committee, to move that? And can I get Member Woodhouse to second that, please? Thank you. Any questions to the minutes? And this is for receipt, by the way.
Oh, really sick. So we're going to...
Okay. Thank you. So please raise your hand if you are in agreement with receiving these. Thank you. Hey, Rick, I think we got some feedback coming there. Good. We do have two items that follow up from this. I think we're good now. The first is report number FA 28-2022, Npca Section 28 Compliance and Enforcement Procedure Manual. And this is for approval by us this morning. Member Fior, can I get you to move that we put this onto the floor? Member McKenzie, would you please second that? Great, thank you. Any questions on this? We had the presentation earlier. I don't see any. Please raise your hand if you are in agreement with us approving this. And that is carried, thank you. Second motion is a recommendation number GC 22-2022, report number GC 09-22, single source contracts for the Npca policy document review and procedural manual phase 2 project. Can I get Member Brady to move this, and can I get Member Steele to second this, please? Thank you. Questions to this particular motion? And, by the way, the report. Seeing none, please raise your hands if you are in approval for this. Thank you very much. That's carried. We have no motions this morning. Does anybody have any notices of motion that they would like to bring forward this morning? Or intention? I don't see any. Under new business, we will move to our CAO, and we will begin with her for a verbal update on the happenings of the Npca.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. There's lots happening, as you can see from various staff reports and the progress we've been making in a very short amount of time. I am sometimes surprised with the hard work of our staff and how they can accomplish so much in such a little time. So congratulations to all of our staff. What I say here and the reports you see really clearly shows their hard work. I just wanted to have two brief things mentioned here in the public that Npca was really proud to partner with Niagara Region and Brock University on the first Niagara Climate Change Summit on June 28th. Over 120 leaders from across the region attended, and 300 people also viewed online. Npca staff team representatives there were Tara Gade, Natalie Green, who obviously was working with the Niagara team, myself, Leilani Lee Yates, our director, Rebecca Hull, and I also want to thank our board members for their leadership, and some of them joined online, Chair Foster, Vice Chair Metcalf, and Chair of our Public Advisory Committee, Member Hewson. They were all there in public, and that really shows where Npca is going and our commitment to climate change. As you know, you have approved a list of actions that are currently being led by staff to come up with a climate action plan for board update later in the year. We're working on various priorities and research projects with various partners. You approved the Cave Spring project at the last meeting. I believe the work there, enhancement of the parking lot and other things have started. And we are also working on several other capital projects funded by the federal government program. If you recall, we received just shy of $1 million from the federal government on to update park infrastructure. I also have received an update from staff on our coastal erosion project. We are working with Nickel Beach Back Dune Financing Project, working with the City of Port Colborne and Niagara Coastal Community and Whale to install snow fencing at Bay Beach and Nickel Beach to restore the dunes. And these are the type of community collaboration and local work we do to engage citizens in leading these type of important projects that are very educational and restore significant parts of our geography at the same time. So those are the three key projects. Pretty much everything is on the agenda. There's some major things happening. So Chair Foster also updated you on the various collaborations across municipalities that we are engaging in. As you saw from the ministry report, progress report that we have put in, we've been talking to our partner municipalities on the Conservation Authority Act changes, programs, and services. And what's interesting is that we are so prepared on the Conservation Authority Act changes. We are ahead of the game, that the province is asking us to execute the changes by 2024 in the transition plan. Our finance team is so prepared that we may do that for the 2023 budgets. So we're working very hard to see if we can do that and use year 2023 to kind of see how these changes are working and make any improvements or tweaks going forward. So really happy with where the organization is going. Thank you for your support. And thank you for public engagement and members of the community who come and work with us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, CAO Sharma. And I was remiss in not mentioning the Climate Summit. And I do want to call out Councillor/Member Hewson. You were one of the early ones that were involved with this and had the region moving in this direction. So I really appreciate what you did with that. And I think it was a good. Day. Lots of very, very good information that was going on, and I was particularly pleased. Member Metcalf was there as well. I thank you for coming to that. There's no report on the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Foundation, although they're well on the way to establishing the new fundraising platform that's going on with that, and that's going to be coming back to this board in the very near future. Any other business? Mr. Metcalf, did you have something?
I did, Chair Foster, just that I was very proud to participate in the symposium, the climate change and action that was taken, and it was very informative. Lots of leaders from different businesses there and different perspectives. So it was a great day for the first initiative, and kudos to the organizers.
Thank you, Member Metcalf. Member Kaywell.
Thank you. So this is for the CAO to get an update. In last month's package, we had the minutes of the Public Advisory Committee meeting from June 2nd. And one of the things that was in there was the members' update. And just let me read it for you. It says, Chair Oblak expressed concerns with communication between the Npca and the public, lack of consultation with the Public Advisory Committee, and difficulty for the Public Advisory Committee to perform its role as liaison. Chandra, are you in any position to give us an update on what, if anything, has happened since that time? No.
Thank you, Member Kewal, through you, Chair Foster. Yes, Chair Oblak made that comment, and that was a surprise to us because the Public Advisory Committee has been instrumental in giving us amazing feedback on the strategic plan, the planning policies. Every time it comes to the board, it goes to the PAC. I was trying to understand where that comment was coming from, and yes, she has concern on some projects happening across the region, the environmental assessment and other things, which Npca obviously is working with the region on. Following that meeting, I sat down with Chair Oblak. We had a 2-hour meeting, and it was a very productive meeting. We talked about a lot of things, and I was trying to understand what her concerns were, and she was very, very helpful. I was able to also clarify the role of the board and the role of the Public Advisory Committee and the difference between two committees. We were able to go over the terms of reference of the Public Advisory Committee and set a future strategy as to how Public Advisory Committee, if they have any concern, can bring to the board. Her and I have talked about it. We still have 6 months of this Public Advisory Committee until the next board is formed and a new public advisory comes in and their terms of reference is updated. Until then, my advice to Chair Oblak is if there is an item that she or any member of the Public Advisory Committee has concerns about, she talked to staff to put it on the agenda. Our staff, Carrie O'Rourke, who is the liaison for that committee, as you know, is exceptional in community engagement and has been doing this for a long time. So in future, Chair Black will bring those items to the agenda in public. We will ask staff to provide updates on any planning matters to her and the advisory committee as a whole. And then if the committee decide, they can pass a formal motion to come to the board to make delegations and ask for further updates on planning matters. So that process, both Chair Oblak and I thought was very transparent and very good, and we both agreed that that makes sense. So we will be following that process going forward. So I'm really pleased that we were able to connect and sort out anything that was concerning to her. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that update. Chair, these are public minutes now, and I'm going to make a suggestion that maybe we invite Chair Oblak to come to the next board meeting and actually share her comments directly with us and hear her perspective on this. We want to make sure that these are addressed. So I'll leave that for your consideration. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Member Kewal. Any other business this morning? Member Rapley.
Bruce McKenzie mentioned things unfolding regarding the board makeup for the future. And I don't know if it's appropriate to discuss it here or do we have any updates that can be discussed or what is unfolding?
Yeah, I do apologize. I was going to make mention under my comments, but I got so excited coming out of closed session, I forgot about that. So Niagara Region dealt with a report at Corporate Services the other morning concerning the size of the upcoming board. Negotiations have been going on between the three municipalities on what the new board will look like. It takes into account CA Act changes, which are very different than what was before. As all of us know, we've all been investigating the CA Act ourselves. It also, more or less within the CA Act, describes the supremacy of the upper tier versus the lower tier when it comes to composition of the board. there was a really good discussion at the corporate services meeting. I actually stepped away from the chair to add some discussion points. That was the first time I've done that at corporate services, but anyway. We had a thorough discussion. There was a request by the committee to add one additional member. This may or may not have to go to the province for approval when this is all said and done, but it seemed like a reasonable request because the discussion at Niagara Region was the fact that the major funding source is Niagara Region, and is significantly more than the remainder. So it was felt there should be some thing taken into account with that. So there's discussions going to go on with CAOs with this, and if it's an agreement between the three municipalities, then we'll send the request to the province for final approval.
What is the status of citizen appointees versus political appointees at this point in time?
The actual CA Act says that it needs to be 70% elected officials that are on the board.
And 30%.
So, and 30%, 70% at least elected officials. I have discovered actually since I've gone into this role and done investigation across the province, many conservation authorities are 100% elected officials. I'm not a fan of that, but it seems to be the reality in a number of areas. So
yeah.
So
no, I just saying the citizen appointee thing. We have a lot of appointees, but it seems to have been a really good thing, and it'd be nice to see it maintained to a reasonable level.
And I'll just add before we go to some others here. One of the discussion points at the town of Lincoln when Chandra and I were there is losing the lower tier municipality input on things. And so there's something that we as a board may want to consider going into the fall, and that is what the public advisability committee is made up and how it's made up. We do have control over that as this board. So this may be something that we want to investigate and make it more focused, bringing in people from the lower area municipalities that may have occurred in the past. So just something, I really wasn't going to talk about that this morning, but we were going to talk about it later on. So, so anyway, there's some options for us to consider with that. So thank you, Member Rapley. Member Hewson.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add to Member K-Wall's comments regarding the public advisory, and I think a lot of the challenges that we actually have is a disconnect between perhaps our roles and responsibilities and what the Npca has capacity for and public expectation. And I'm wondering if there's room for improvement even within further defining the mandate of the public advisory so it's more explicit, because I do, in looking at it, I do find it very general in terms of providing collaborative perspective, guidance, and advice on policy plans or other business. That's pretty much a completely open pot of things, and I think that we're looking more specifically for, I think when we set up the public advisory, for help to improve or repair the reputational image of the Conservation Authority and get feedback from a public advisory body in terms of some of the things that are happening. So perhaps we need to revisit the mandate and refine it further so that it's clearer in terms of the expectations. And that's suggestion one. The second suggestion is I respect that there is a chair of that advisory committee, but if the chair is bringing forward concerns, it really should reflect the committee, not a single person who represents that body. So I would encourage that a discussion takes place with the committee, and that if the chair is presenting that feedback to us, it represents the committee, not a singular person's view. So I just wanted to add that feedback.
Thank you, thank you, Member Hughes and Member Brady.
Yes, I'd like to very much echo the second comment made by Member Hewson. I very much agree that if the committee is having issues and it's recorded in their minutes and that those minutes can come to us, that's one thing, and I think that we should be acting appropriately. But if it's just coming from one person, then I wonder about whether or not that's as appropriate. So I'd like very much what our CIO has suggested, and that is if there's a concern about a planning matter or policy matter, that it be discussed at the Public Advisory Committee and be recorded in their minutes, and that then if there continues to be concern about that, then it can certainly be brought to the board and discussed rather than the method that was used.
Thank you, Member Brady. Member Kaywall.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up to Member Rapley's question, on the front page of the St. Catharines Standard today is the whole story on the Npca proposed membership, so you can get a further update there, Bill. So.
Yep, thank you. I had a discussion with Bill Sawchuk as he was writing that and made sure at least he got the numbers right as it was going on. So, Member Rapley?
Just a further comment. I've been representing Niagara-on-the-Lake, and we do have good interaction between the Npca staff and the staff at the NOTL, and this has been a good thing because we have projects that we're jointly working on. There is this other wave of things, the environmental advisory committees, and I'm on that committee for the NOTL, and I know one of our members is on the Port Colborne committee. There may be a way of these environmental advisory committees working together, and perhaps through the Npca there might be a mechanism for that so that we have a lot of common things happening throughout the region,
Yeah, thank you, Member Rapley. And I would suggest to you, as I said earlier, I think this is going to be a nice challenge for us as the Npca board to look at how we can tie these together and move ourselves into the future in a good coordinated manner. So. I don't see any other. Member Whithouse. Member Whithouse has other business.
Thank you. As it relates to the mandate of us, this particular board going forward and becoming a lame duck, my understanding is that the region has to have this new board in place in October, I believe the article said. Or the legislation requires it, or the province requires it by October. And so once that's in place, then does that automatically take over the activity of this board, or do we finish our mandate? And if we finish our mandate through that, when do we become lame duck?
So through you, Chair, to Member Woodhouse, the process will unfold like this, after the municipal elections, but hopefully by then, the three partnering municipalities, and the definition of partnering municipalities of the Conservation Authority is clear in the Act. Where there is a two-tier system, it's the upper tier municipality. So for us, it's Hamilton, Haldimand, and Niagara. They have to agree on the membership first, and once that's done, there has to be a formal agreement sent to the ministry, and ministry has to approve if there are any changes from what is in the Act. Once that's done, municipal elections will happen, and post-municipal elections, members will be appointed to the board. Now, Npca is an independent entity. As you know, our business must continue and we must maintain quorum. So until our next AGM, we will continue as a board. As municipalities appoint members, new members will come in. So that will be the process that will follow post-elections, basically. And I think it will be towards the end of the year that municipalities will be able to appoint members to our board, which we can ratify at our next AGM, which is in February.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Member Woodhouse. And with that, we have come to the completion of this agenda. Thank you very much. We got in before 11:30, so those that are leaving at 11:30, you can stay around for 7 minutes. And for the rest, you can all leave early. So with that, I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.